Thank you, Sheila. This is a resolution regarding setting of the public hearing for the 24-25 sewer service fee and rates. Whereas the Enfield Water Pollution Control Authority values the opinions and comments of its constituents, and whereas in accordance with section 86-52F, the Enfield Water Pollution Control Authority must hold a public hearing on their proposed sewer service fees and rates for the upcoming fiscal year. Now therefore be it resolved that the Enfield Water Pollution Control Authority shall conduct a public hearing in the Town Council Chambers at Town Hall, 820 Enfield Street on June 26, 2024 at 6 p.m. on the proposed sewer service fees and rates for fiscal year 24 and 25. Date prepared June 11th, 2024, prepared by the Town Manager's Office.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Are there any comments on it?
Just do we need the hour? Is there something after that we've already scheduled?
Yes, we're going to have the meeting setting it because we have to set it by July 1st.
No, right, but we have this at 6.
And the meeting will be at 6:15.
Oh, okay.
So you.
Thank
so
you.
don't have to be- That's what we
Thank
thought.
you.
It'll roll right in.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor? Opposed? For roll call?
Roll call. Counselor Sakala? 4. Counselor Hendrickson?
4.
Counselor Ludwig?
It's set in the public hearing, right?
This is setting the public hearing.
4.
Counselor Commissioner, sorry.
4.
Chair Nelson?
4.
Vice Chair Kisner? 4. And Commissioner Ungary? 4. 7 members for, none against.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? We are now adjourned. Thank you. joint meeting with the Board of Education, the joint special meeting with the Board of Education to order, June 13th, 7 PM. Can I have roll call, please?
Counselor Sakala. Here. Counselor Prasadi.
Here.
Counselor Finger. Absent. Counselor Hendrickson.
Here.
Counselor Ludwig.
Here.
Counselor Mangini. Here. Counselor Nasuda.
Here.
Mayor Nelson.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Pisner. Here. Counselor Santinella.
Here.
And Counselor Ungary. Here. 10 members are present, 1 is absent.
Okay, and can the Board of Education please go around the room and introduce themselves? Amanda?
Why do you go closest?
Okay, you want to start, Peter?
No, I'd rather the last.
I can call their
Janitis.
names if you think it's easier.
Janitis.
Janet Cushman. She here? No. Peter Janitis.
Here.
Scott Ryder.
Here.
Gerald Kalman.
Here.
Tina LeBlanc. Here. Philip Kober.
Here.
Charlotte Riley. Here. Gina Cree.
Here.
And Amanda Pickett. Here. 8 members are present, 1 is absent.
Okay, and then anybody else at the table, we'll go around and introduce yourself, please.
Chris Bromson, town manager.
John Wilcox, Director of Finance.
Tom Fowler and Mark Serrato, Town Attorney's Office.
Christine Cheney, attorney for the Enfield Board of Education.
Andy Longi, interim superintendent.
Lorena Cisneros, business manager.
Sheila Bailey, town clerk.
I think that's it.
Steve Linda, Assistant Town Manager.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I know this is kind of an urgent matter, and hopefully we can get through it and come up with a solution that everybody can live with. So I'll open up the floor to whoever would like to start the conversation.
Okay, I'll start. Thank you for agreeing to meet here tonight because as Mayor Nelson said, the matter's urgent. And I thought that it was best if we just came together all at once because back and forth and emails and stuff is just gonna take too long. So I was hoping that by the time that this meeting was over, we could come to an agreement with the MOU on how we can work on the shortfall. So the town sent us their MOU. We reviewed it with our attorney. We had some further suggestions so that it could be more specific, so that there was less gray area. And we unanimously voted last Thursday. Yep. That we were confident in this MOU, plus there's an additional MOU to cover the additional 1.7 that was found out after the fact when you voted on your budget. So we would, respectfully request that you guys take all of our requests into consideration.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte. Anyone else? So I guess I'll go then. My concern, first of all, is when we were negotiating the original MOU, it was implied that 3.9 million would get the Board of Ed out of the hole with a little bit of cushion to carry over to next year that the town council had agreed to let you keep as part of your 2% carryover. We approved your budget with a 2% increase, and several days after that, you came back to us with another request that you were still short 1.8 million and you were requesting 1.7 from the town council. On top of that, with payment terms that you would make. The payment terms were not part of your proposed or approved budget for next year, but after speaking with the chairman and the interim superintendent, he informed me that the state of Connecticut has reduced the cost for the Board of Education for CREC schools down to 60-something%. And that savings would be close to $800,000. No,
300,000.
300,000.
Yes.
Okay. And they were going to use that money to help offset the repayment back to the town of Enfield.
Can I just jump in there?
Sure.
Because I may have misspoken. So you're right, I did not put that in our budget presentation. So after we met as a group, it didn't seem appropriate to put it in for next year because it was not a budget line. And I'm trying to make sure that the budget that I give is a true budget that has every line item in there. So you'll see in our MOU, it will be for the next budget year, so we can actually budget for it properly. The presentation can be done properly, and it's an actual budget line for you. So, Mr. Mayor, that's my fault. I should not have spoken without the board's approval on that. Because it wasn't in the budget request, we just as a group felt like it was not appropriate without going back to the board and the public and saying, I'm adding another $340,000 into that. The MOU reflects that. So I just want to clarify that. So I apologize for that confusion. That was my fault.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. So my number one concern is the first words out of my mouth were, how are we going to prevent this from happening again next year? Everybody's shaking their head. And that was a condition of the 3.9. So when you came back to us and stated you're still 1.8 short, and if we don't fund the 1.8, that the Board of Education was able to shift the cost for the correct schools for this current year of 1.3 something million into next year's budget, which is not in your budget. You have no way to pay that money. So we're kicking the can into next year. And also it would require the Board of Education to go back and make an additional $400,000+ in cuts. And the first words that I heard were high school sports would be one of the first things that the Board of Education chooses to cut to fund this. So with all that information, the original MOU that the town of Enfield drafted, I still find it hard to believe that somebody who's asking for help actually has the nerve to put demands on that the town of Enfield does an audit, who we use for an audit. Yes, we discussed doing an audit ourselves, but that's not a condition of the Board of Education accepting 3.9 million. The original MOU for 3.9 million doesn't exist anymore because it doesn't make you solvent. And that was the first condition I said that meeting was we have to make sure it doesn't happen again next year. So if the town council tonight agrees to just give you $3.9 million, you are not solvent. You're still in the hole, $1.7 million. And I had discussions with Charlotte and John and Andy, and they talked about ways to cover the 1.7 if we don't. So in my opinion, either we're going to fund all of it or none of it, because funding part of it does not get the Board of Education out of the hole that they're in. So why are we here now? Why is the town council being so reluctant on issuing the Board of Education a check for $5.7 million? First of all, is accountability, okay? For somebody to overspend almost $6 million in a budget, there's gross negligence on somebody's part. I don't know who, but somebody's. And I don't know how long this has accumulated to get to this point. And that's why we unanimously requested a forensic audit of the Board of Education. So the town of Enfield, with a budget of $150 million, at the current tax rate, with the approved, if we approve the town manager's budget, which included an 8.6% increase to the Board of Education, and we were to kick in the additional $5.8 million that you're short this year, and every year from here on out, that's another $5.8 million for next year because it was already discussed. That was not part of your 8.6% request. That was above and beyond. If the town council agreed to just blindly write that check, it would raise the mill rate to 35.87, which equals on a house value, forget assessments and all of that, on a house value of $275,000. And that's about the average cost in Enfield, realistically. The tax increase for each homeowner would be $1,460 a year. Now, that is after receiving a 16% tax increase over the last 2 years. So why are we digging in? We're digging in because we are trying to take fiscal responsibility for our tax dollars. And we can't just blindly write a check and tell the taxpayers we're either hitting you with a special assessment of $1,460 to each resident or raising your taxes permanently. We have other things to do. So the town council chose to butcher the town side of the budget to come up with the money, the $3.9 million, just to keep our fund balance safe in case we lose a pump station or something happens within the town of Enfield. So all those cuts we made now were in vain because the Board of Ed is asking for the money that we cut. They're asking for that also, which puts us below $16 million in fund balance, which makes me very, very nervous. So instead of one ship going down, we could possibly take both down because of this. And I'm not comfortable with that. So that's where I stand on this issue. And I've met with Charlotte and Andy and the town manager and the town attorneys again and again. Phil and Peter, we've all discussed this, and it's just, you know, even paying back the money, we still have to upfront the cost. And in 5 years, you know, we had plans as a council taking over, doing priorities, infrastructure priorities. They weren't pretty, but they were our agenda. Well, all that's out the window now. And then now we have to worry about whether we have enough money to deal with any issues that come forward in the next year. So that's where I stand right now. And I'm actually leaning more towards giving the Board of Education nothing and letting them straighten it out. Because if we give them $3.9 million, it's already been told to me, you are going to cut high school sports to cover it. If we give you nothing, we funded next year's budget. You made your cuts already for next year's budget, and you're solvent for next year. So by funding you $3.9 million, we're creating a bigger problem for the school system in next year. And that's a very tough decision to make. I mean, you don't give your child half of his car payments and have the car still get repossessed. You either fund them all or don't fund them and let them take the car.
Who's taking the car?
It was an analogy.
Who's gonna take it?
May I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
So your initial MOU from the town to the school board was $3.9 million. Where did you get that figure? Because you didn't get it from the Board of Ed.
It came out of your budget book, out of your finance committee report on proposed grants. The line item was 3.9, the same line item that I was showed in November, 2 weeks after we took office by Chris Drezig, Tina, and Charlotte. But at that time, it was 5.8 million. And Chris told me, give us time. He's freezing the budget and he's going to do what he could do to get the number down. I thought you guys did good getting it to 3.9 million. I really did. But now it's back up to 5.8. So there was very little movement. And also another thing that really makes me nervous is the Board of Education has beat it into everybody's head in this community that you receive 75 new special ed students.
78.
78, okay, that you can't fund. But in the next budget next year, you have zero contingency money.
That's incorrect. It's also, you didn't ask the superintendent or the director of finance on the school side. That 3.9 was a number that was not given to you by the school board.
It was discussed with Chris Drezig back in November.
Right.
So I did speak to the superintendent.
That was a
And when
number from months ago.
And then when
You
I
came up
talked
with
to Charlotte,
3.9 a few weeks ago.
and when I talked to Charlotte, Scott, Charlotte said, it looks like it's gonna be 3.9, but she believes closer to 3.5, and we were,
I
all
never
the
said that.
Republicans were in a room.
Those words never came out of my mouth. Do
Bob
not put
Henderson,
words in my mouth. I
now,
told you I did not have the number. I said 3.9 would help, but 3.9 was not the number.
And I remember a conversation where we asked your best number. It wasn't a guarantee, that was your best number. That's what I remember, the conversation.
Right, but I didn't have the right number. I told you there was more.
If I could just say that 3.9 is a reimbursement line. So that's actually money that would be encumbered back into the district. I don't know where that came from. I'm still a little confused where that came from. I think there was one meeting where in this room with leadership, I wasn't there, but I believe the former superintendent said 4.5 and he thinks he could maybe make it. But we do not get final bills to the end of the year. It's special ed that pushed us further than that. It's well over $2 million in special ed fixed costs that we encumbered this year that we budgeted as we always have in the past, but 78 high needs special ed students is simply something a school district cannot absorb. We do not have the savings for that. And I just want to clarify a few things. We keep throwing different numbers out. We're 5.6 million short. So just so we all have the same number, 5.6. Just so we have that number. 3.9 is nothing that ever said we were short. That was a reimbursement line of different costs that were coming back to us. So that's money we were waiting for. But no one asked the former superintendent and no one asked the finance director. So that's number one. Once 3.9 got out, it became gospel. That's just the truth. That's the truth. So if someone had asked the finance director wouldn't know the exact number, not a month ago, because we didn't know we could project, but it would have been well over 3.9, closer to 5 at that point, but it was never asked of us. The former superintendent in a meeting said 4.5, and he says, I think I can make it work there, okay? That's the timeline of things, but this is the fact now. The fact is we have 2.35 million of SPED estimated costs that we receive now. The problem is that it's so big is because the excess costs, they reduced on us this year. They told us the budget for 91 and they dropped it down. So that was over a $500,000 change in a Board of Ed budget where we do not have savings, we do not have all that extra money. That is devastating to us. So those are the facts. That's the fact. And let me clarify one other thing for not having contingencies for next year, because that is not true. The reason why, now I own next year's budget. The reason why I had to cut $9.5 million is because of these same costs that extremely damaged the district this year was budgeted into next year. For example, access cost. We projected over $2 million. We only received 1.4. Next year's budget, I budgeted for 1.4. Estimates for SPED tuition private, 900,000 is an average cost for the year. This year, $1.3 million, almost $1.4 million. Next year's budget, $1.38 million, exactly what we paid this year. This was I don't know what happened this year. Everything went wrong this year with the type of services we provided. Professional services, those are all the services we have to provide students. We budgeted $568. We spent $1.13. What is in next year's budget? $1.13. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, we had budgeted $90,000. We spent $272,000 this year. What is budgeted for next year? $272,000. SPED transportation, $1.5 million, we spent $2 million. What's in the budget next year? $2 million, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which equals 2.35. So that, even if, and I can't speak for the former superintendent, but even if the Alliance funds came in like we were promised, that we budgeted for, and even if town projects that we paid for, that we were told that we would get reimbursed for, all of this is in writing, by the way, all of it. Even if we received the 1.3 in building projects we were told by the state we would be reimbursed for, and even if the Alliance money came in like we were told that we're going to come in on the night of the vote, we were told, we still would be short this year. It's just the fact. So I know you guys are in a tough position. I understand. That's why, Ken, when I talked to you, I wasn't raised not to pay my bills. The best thing I could think of since I took over is to try to pay you guys back. I know it doesn't help right now, and I know this is a tough position for you guys, but we're up against it. This district has given money back to you guys. We have had contingency to ask for very minimal increases every year. We need help. That's all I'm gonna say.
So I still have the floor. So on that, the Board of Ed had a vote for Charlotte and Tina to come and officially ask the town council for the 3.9 million.
Nope, they never said a number.
I did not say a
They
number.
never said a
that you-
number. Watch the tape.
I asked to cover the shortfall because I knew that the number was not final at that point in time, which is why I did not say a number on TV. Because I knew there was more, because I knew that the final sped numbers were not in, and I did not want.
The first time we ever saw 3.9 was in your first MOU draft. That was the first time somebody said 3.9. That did not come from the Board of Ed.
I made it up, Scott. I just picked a number out of the blue.
I think you got it from somebody on your team, and it wasn't a real number.
Whoever wrote this, wrote it
It was a
down.
mistake.
Why don't we just, like, let's call a spade a spade, everybody knows where you got it, let's just put it out on the table, you got it from Mr. Colbert, there, boom.
You read the wrong line.
What you told me.
I mean, let's be honest, that's,
Yep.
it is what it is, so let's now just move on, it's not 3.9, whoever relied on that, oops.
Okay, so it's not 3.9, I agree with you, it's 5.7 million, so.
5.6.
5.6 million. So all MOUs that are written right now should be garbage because they're not accurate. So let's make a decision. Does the town council agree to give the Board of Education $5.6 million with 1.6 or 1.7 of it reimbursable through the payment plan that they set forth? Under the conditions they're solvent next year, we get a line-by-line audit, or not audit, budget that John Wilcox can explain to the finance director how he does his, so we get the same, and a forensic audit of the Board of Education.
Can I just add one thing? I do not have a problem with a forensic audit at all. You
Nope.
go look at everything. The only reason why we put it in here is because the way that I understood it was that the audits that we've already had done by Clifton Allen Larson are technically forensic audits.
There's a forensic audit.
So I didn't want you to spend any more money than you had to, but if you want to go and pick some of the audits, I mean, just go for it. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying that's why that was in there.
Thank you, Charlotte. Gina?
So to answer your direct question, I'm in favor of the 5.6. That being said, I don't know that you can say that the MOU regarding the 3.9 is garbage is out the door. I think that's a discussion point because I think there might be appetites for different numbers, and I'm not willing to do 0 or 5.6. So I'm fine with the 5.6, but I don't think you can throw out the MOU for the 3.9 just yet. I have to say a couple of things. I mean, I think there's an issue that they relied on money that they thought was theirs, meaning the Board of Ed. We've had that explained. If there was reliance on that money, then that's the reason they didn't come and ask for our money earlier in the year, because I think they would have been a lot better off with that 2.5. You have the 1.7, you have the 1.8, you have the 600,000, you have the new students, you have the special ed, you have all of these things that sort of create this perfect storm. And can you keep saying this is going to create a hole year after year after year of 5 million or whatever number you picked? But I think the superintendent or the interim superintendent said that that's not true. So I want to be very careful with our words because we can't say things that aren't true. And so if it's not going to create a hole next year and the year after and the year after, because he budgeted for that, because those were some of the $12 million or the $9 million in reduction that they made, I think that needs to be very clear, because putting it out there that giving this 5.6 for this current year's budget is going to create a shortfall of 5.6 or more every year thereafter is a very dangerous and untrue thing to say.
Right,
So-
it would.
You can't say
It
that.
would make us clean for next year. We have a very lean budget. We have a budget in which if we really, if our line items hold true, we can start working towards that contingency again. If I have to carry debt over, I'm never getting out of it.
No, I know.
I'm never getting out of it.
So
I can't.
in general, I'm fine with 5.6. I appreciate your out of the box thinking for the extra 1.7. I think it's really unfortunate that this 3.9 was floated out there. Shame on whoever and shame on us for relying on it. Or not us, because I didn't, but shame on people for relying on it. I think the superintendent said 4.5 when he came in, and I think that was corroborated by the town manager at some point. That it was 4.5, or at least that Chris said it was 4.5. So now we are in this hole. So yes, I'm fine with the 5.6. Period. End of story.
John,
So I would like to understand various scenarios, and I asked this question the last time we were together in this room, and so I'd like you to just, at the best that you can, if you get 0, what does that look like?
Well, we'd be able to pay our payroll, which is next Friday, and then that would be it. We would not pay our bills. There is no world in which I can come up with that money right now. It doesn't exist.
Okay.
The bills we would not pay are yours.
Okay.
Insurance, Medicaid, IT is basically it.
Okay.
That our shortfall is basically 3 months of insurance, the Medicaid we owe, and our IT bill.
And the implications for next year would look like what?
That's so much money, sports, I can't cut more staff or I can't open a building. So sports is the only thing I could think of. Not hiring a superintendent, but I'm only $600,000.
Okay.
With that.
I'm not suggesting that we do that. I'm asking to understand the consequences of the decision, right? There's no point in rehashing where we are. The numbers are where they are.
I don't know
So-
what the consequences are because legally, I don't think we've ever been into something like that. That's why our attorney's here, but we wouldn't be able to pay you, so you probably would sue us. And so we would be in lawsuits and probably a mediator would say, well, what can you afford? And we would say, we can pay $340,000 for 5 years. It's probably, and we'd all incur a bunch of legal debt. That's probably what would happen, but who am I?
that's only for the 1.7.
That's just for the 1.7, so I can give you 20 years, I'll pay you $340,000 for 20 years. I mean, that literally is what will happen. It'll be a mediator, we'll figure this out. And they will dig through all of the town's accounts to look at what percentage of increases we got in the past 20 years versus the town, and they're gonna figure out how much money did we give back, and all of that will go into it and it'll drag on for years. That's what I believe will happen.
I'm sorry. Through the mayor to the town manager, if you can add some clarity for me, if it were to come to that where they could not pay us, what are the options? Is that the scenario? Is that we are going to actually be in a lawsuit with the board, or is this territory that you?
That's for the town attorney. I have no idea.
Then through the mayor to the town attorney, can you validate that that's where we would be? Or we don't know? Is this territory that we've never
I
been?
don't know for sure,
Okay,
but it seems as though if the town is owed a debt and that debtor doesn't pay, then the town has a claim against that debtor.
okay,
Of course, the confusing thing that's thrown in the mix is it's the Board of Ed.
right.
So I can't say conclusively, Mark, can you? We don't know, not without looking that one up.
I'm just trying to understand the practicality of what that
Yeah.
looks like, and that's fine.
It's not pretty.
I don't have any questions.
Councilman Mangini.
Thank you. I'm very disturbed by this whole scenario. We're not two different towns or two different
states or countries. We're one family. We're here servicing and accommodating the needs of our community. And this kind of inquisition is very upsetting to me. The Board of Education has an issue, has to pay bills. They're coming to the town to get some assistance, get some help. Slicing and dicing this whole business apart, in my opinion, is wrong, and it turns my stomach. My position is, let's accommodate the Board of Ed with the request that they have so we can move forward. Get done what needs to be done. Cutting. We're gonna start sewing. Sports is very important for these young students. It's part of their character, part of their growth and development. It's absurd. Cut here, cut there. Who's hurt by all this? Who's hurt are the students. And again, the faculty that are leaving. But these kids truly are entitled to, and I'll use that word entitled, to a quality of life. And we're just slashing and burning the quality of life. And I'm done with it. I will support whatever the Board of Education says they need, because that's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Councilman Ludwig.
John, so if we covered the 5.6, what would be our estimated fund balance?
I believe based on our preliminary budget, our FY 24 budget, we should be around $25 million. So spending this would take it down about to a little over 19 million.
And plus, would we use in a budget?
Plus, I do know that there are several accounts that are over budget, so it wouldn't be that big of a.
So the 9% of our roughly 165 million is about 14 million for our statutory requirement for.
It's
so
not
we'd be above
statutory,
that.
but it's.
Well, I consider it, because if we don't do it, we lose our bond rating. It's statutory, in my opinion. Thank you. So I'm sorry, I have to respectfully disagree with Councilwoman Mangini. We have to be. I'm sorry, these numbers that we keep hearing, I'm sorry, look, I'm not questioning I'm not even going out who was wrong, who was right. Andy, I'm sorry, look, I know it's not we haven't got 90% sped reimbursement ever, in my opinion, unless you can. Whoever told us that we were gonna get it, hopefully we have it in writing.
And a PowerPoint from the
But
commission.
I mean, but I'm saying to you, this needs to be done. I want to meet in public. I want to have monthly meetings if we're willing to cover this. Because I'm tired of hearing different numbers from everybody. I don't know who to believe. I'm being honest with you. I do not know who to believe. And then the 1.7 people bring up, not this one, the other one where you covered my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, you knew the same day when you applied for the grant you weren't getting the money, my understanding. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. Which grant? Whatever, the money for the reimbursement for that's what I was told. Tennis courts, or whatever it may be. Whatever the projects were that it was denied. And so I'm saying to you, if we're meeting monthly and having these open discussions, finding efficiencies between our finance department and yours, this going back and forth on what number's right, what number's wrong, who to believe, it's outrageous. I'm sorry, it's outrageous. Because I don't know who to believe. I don't want you folks in a lurch. And again, we gave you rebate gave you back the contingency when I was mayor. We also covered your costs back when, again, the state cut you $8 million. But then we did it, and when we met every day in public, we produced documents. That's the other thing. We need to have documents. So it's not your word versus my word versus their word. And it seems like we're just chasing our tails. And I'm not saying, my suggestion is whatever we decide to do here, we got to meet monthly, and it's got to be a joint meeting. It has to be, our finance department's got to be there, our lawyers are got to be there. Because so if we know you applied for a grant, you didn't get it, we know it in September, you're going to be short $1 million. I don't need to know this in February. I need to know it in September. Same way us, look, there's a recession going on. Okay, I know what, now we're feeling it. If we start seeing our tax receipts going down in September, which is what we meet with our finance director on, we got a problem, right? If people are missing their mortgages and missing their taxes, we got a problem because we, as you know, we set a rate to collect taxes at a certain rate. We're not meeting it. We're in the same boat as you are, just a different boat, right? So I just have to admit, I'm a little bit frustrated because just the numbers just keep changing, and I'm a numbers guy. And I want to make sure that, again, I'm not questioning anyone's integrity. But if the learning lesson here is, man, everyone's got a different story. And the story seems to be a little bit tweaked here, a little bit tweaked there. We have to meet as a board, and we have to meet with you folks, and we have to have our finance meeting, even if it is, look, here it is for September 15th. Our expenditures were $1 million. We have $1 million in revenue. Meeting adjourned. Great. I mean, it has to be that public. No, I mean, if I'm a taxpayer, I'm not paying attention. I wouldn't know who to believe. Even if I'm completely, I want to spend as much money as possible. You don't know who to believe here. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying the way all this is going out. And again, we did make significant cuts on the town side to make sure you weren't going to be whole. And so, I mean, and I understand folks don't appreciate it, don't even care about what we passed on July 1, but you know, we did make cuts so we could have some money in our fund balance to help to have this discussion, whether it's 3.9, 5.6, 4.5. You know, I mean, if I'm a taxpayer, I'm a little bit confused myself. And so I'm not lecturing you at all. Please don't take it the wrong way, Andy. I think, honestly, you know, I think acting superintendent is a great title for you, by the way. But having said that, look, I appreciate the explanation because I didn't think you budgeted to be in the hole next year. However, we need to make sure it doesn't happen on both sides. Because look, folks, we're in a recession, okay? I know, we're in a recession. And I know the federal government wants to play with the numbers and make it look everything's okay. It's not. And we're gonna have same issues with tax collection and everything else. We need to be doing it in public. I'm willing, and even if you don't want me there, I'm willing to be in the audience. Because as a taxpayer, I just want the true story. Tell me where you're short, what happened, how do we fix it? That's all I care about, everything else, I know, and I appreciate everyone meeting here. I'm not preaching to anybody, but again, I want to solve the problem. And I'll be upfront with you too. Cutting sports, look, I'm a sport, but it's like, look, I don't want the kids put in the middle of this, okay? And I understand you have, look, I'm not suggesting you are. Please don't, I mean, again, I respect you, Andy, and we've gone back a long way. I just think, look, we need to be calmer heads here. We need to understand, look, whoever did whatever did, you know, if the audit comes in, finds out, then so be it. We'll deal with it at that point. But right now, as of June 5th, 13th, we need to manage this. And I'm sorry, I know management maybe not be a great word for people, but we need to manage this. And if we can help each other find efficiencies. Now, one thing that we found 5 years ago when we sat together as a group of people and we found efficiencies and we saved some money without cutting personnel or cutting programs. So if we're talking and there's something we're doing on the town side that maybe, hey, you're not getting, for example, on your side, I don't know how it works when you get at your finance director, here's your money in your fund, you know, how, I mean, there's got to be a process, I hope. But if that process is not a daily process, maybe it should be. Is that process a monthly? Well, it shouldn't be a monthly process. At very least, should be a weekly process, right? I mean, you folks got to know what's in your account and what your expenditures are. And that's the way, I mean, as someone, as an accountant, I would be demanding it. And so I know I'm going around here. I have to admit, I'm not sure I support the full 5.6. But again, as long as within here that we have it, it's not as an amendment now, we have to meet. And we have to meet on a monthly basis in public, and we have to share information so the public understands one way or the other what's going on, good, bad, and different. And I don't care who's to blame at this point, and I know I probably shouldn't say that. So the audit will take care of that if we do it. The audit will find that. So again, that's what we're going to pay those folks for. I want to fix the problem. But I think this is actually a healthy meeting. We should have been doing this earlier, okay? If we can't, as adults, get in a room and pound it out, then we shouldn't be here. Whether we agree or disagree, if we can't pound it out and have a public meeting so the public knows where their dollars are being spent, then we shouldn't be doing this, and that's just my opinion. Thank you for the floor, and I'll stop talking.
Can I reply to Mike just as a
Sure.
Real quick, I agree.
Yeah. I'm willing to work with the board.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
So I have quite a few questions. Everyone that's talking to me on this is asking me one question. When did this happen? Because it certainly didn't happen 6 months ago. This happened over the last couple of years. And so somebody wasn't paying attention because it didn't happen 6 months ago. This has been building. And unless somebody can tell me it hasn't been or show me it hasn't been, you just don't have this kind of a deficit in 6 months. Somebody wasn't paying attention. And I know Mr. Comer, when he came on, started asking questions, and I've gone back and watched all the meetings, and he was actually just treated very disrespectfully, saying, yeah, I'll get you the numbers. Yeah, I'll get you the numbers, because he was questioning it. And he was just dismissed. What was handed out at the Board of Ed meeting, I looked at the numbers. 20 to 21, you had 774.1 staff. 2023 to 2024, you had 926.8 staff with less students. And I went onto the state website to find out how many students we had because nobody could tell me what our enrollment is. And it shows it's less. So why do we have 153 more staff and less students? I find this so frustrating because if this was the private sector, if this was a business, someone would have been arrested and a business would have been bankrupt. But because it's not, we have to look at it differently. I am not 100% convinced this isn't going to happen again. And the residents in this town cannot continue to go bankrupt. We cannot bankrupt our fund balance. It makes me sick to my stomach what's happened to this education. But there's no guarantee because no one's saying, you know what, this is why it happened. Because I wasn't paying attention or they weren't paying. And I know Mike said we don't want to blame anybody, but you know what? We're getting blamed. We're getting blamed for this. And we didn't do it. We're trying to help. So I am not 100% convinced this is going to happen again. I'm not 100% convinced that I want to get anything right now. Because the numbers I'm seeing aren't jiving. I still don't know what an enrollment is. I still don't know what teachers are gone, what staff stayed. We don't have anything. I know we got a bunch of emails and I printed them out and I had Chris print some out for me, but they honestly don't make sense. How do you run a school and know you're going to be in a deficit? How do you run a business and do that? I ran a small business. I knew if somebody used 2 perms on somebody. This is where my frustration lies. And the only people that are getting hurt on this is our students. That's who's taking the fall for this. And that angers me. And I have been real quiet through this process, and I haven't said much. But what happened is wrong. And someone needs to say, this is why it happened, and it won't happen again, because now this is what we're doing to make it better. I yield the floor.
Councilman Hendrickson.
A couple questions. To the mayor, to John. Mr. Wood, can you give me the fund balance number again? So that was at the end of 2024, and then we spent some on the budget for 2025. Is that what you're saying? If we give them the 5.6.
If everything came in according to budget, okay, which the required fund balance by the council policy is $15.3 million. Okay.
Yep.
Projected according to, based on budget, if everything came in on budget, we're about $30 million at the end of FY23. We would use $5 million according to last year's budget. So that would take it down to $25 million. So that would leave about $10 million excess over the policy requirement.
Right, then minus the 5.6, so we give them that.
Correct.
And then we spent some of the fund balance for
Right, we reduced that
fiscal
amount.
2025.
1 second. So we are budgeted to use, $3.9 million. A little longer.
So minusing the 3.9 and the 5.6 to them.
9.5 million out of the 25.
About 20 million.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that one.
20 million.
No, out of
No.
25.
Out of 25. You're taking 9,
It's 16.
you're taking 9.5 out of 25.
That's not the number.
No, that's what he was
That's
saying.
it.
Not a 30.
Yeah, it's out of
It's
30.
a 30.
It's,
Well, the other 5's
yeah,
already gone.
it is,
That was 2023.
right, we're talking, we got a couple fiscal years here. So you got FY 23, that year ends, we're about $30 million, okay? So you're correct, Bob. If everything went according to budget, and I haven't done all the analysis on the accounts, I know we are over budget in some of the revenue accounts, so I'm less concerned than I would have been. Because I don't think we're gonna use the entire $5 million for FY 24, okay? But if we did, we would be about $25 million, okay? That's based on the adopted budget, right? So now we are then projected to use an additional $5.6 million in FY 24. So instead of 5 million, it would go up to 10.6 million. Okay, so 30 million down to 19.4. Okay, and then
The
the
3.9 that we budgeted for. Yep, so we're
Right.
at 16.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
No, it's budgets. What 3.9 are
But
you
then,
talking
like I
about?
said, that
2025 budget. We
For-
used some
for
of the fund
debt.
balance.
Oh, for the town garage.
No,
Oh, just the same
it's a
number.
different number. Yeah,
I know.
a different
Sorry.
same number.
Different, same number, sorry.
So nobody's comfortable with that number.
It's dangerous.
Nobody's comfortable with that. Okay. All right, this one's to Attorney Tyler. I'm not an attorney. So an MOU is not legally binding in any form? Is it a handshake? What are we talking about?
Are you talking in terms of,
MOU, if we give them an MOU, what's to say they don't pay any of it back? Because they overspent the budget, so I'm concerned that who am I believing that anybody's gonna follow this? They didn't follow the budget, so why would they follow the
I
MOU?
think what you're asking is, does the MOU contain a remedy
Yes.
clause? And it does not. So that in effect, it's based upon good faith negotiations between the board and the council, and carrying forth their good word on more than a handshake. So they have it in writing in terms of what everybody's understanding is. But if somebody breaches the MOU, there's no remedy in the MOU for relief, so to speak.
I'm assuming that's standard procedure to use an MOU. I don't have much faith after blowing a budget by $6 million, so it is concerning to me. So what is the remedy of a board that blows a budget by $6 million and can't pay it back?
Well,
I was told.
I think you gotta ask the board's counsel for that one, not us.
I'm sorry, what's your question?
What is the remedy of a Board of Education that overblows their budget and has no money to pay anything back?
A remedy for who?
What's the punishment, or not punishment, that's a bad word, but
Penalty.
what's that? What is the penalty for going over your budget on a
Well, Board of Education statutorily cannot overspend. which is why, what Mr. Longy told you is exactly what would end up happening. If they don't receive, they can't spend any more money than they have. So if you give them no money, they'll spend the money that they have, and the remaining bills will go unpaid. And then presumably those folks are creditors, and they can pursue whatever legal action they may wish to pursue against the board. But they will not be, they cannot legally spend money they don't have. So when they run out of money, they simply have to stop spending.
Right, so they would sue the board personally or the town? Who's responsible for overspending the board?
They would sue the board, but not personally. There's a statute, 10235, that indemnifies all Board of Education members and employees fully. So it would not be personally liable. It would be the Board of Ed itself, and it would be a judgment. And then if I were representing such a creditor, I would do what I need to do to collect on it.
So so they could blow their budget every year and just hope that they don't get sued? The town?
Well, I don't think, I think that would be a pretty vain hope, sir. I
understand that this is the first time it's happened, but I don't have much faith.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that generally when creditors get stiffed, they sue.
All right, a question for somebody over there. You keep talking about the audits that have been done on the Board of Ed. I went everywhere looking for it. I can't find them. Can somebody tell me where to find them? I looked for, where you told me was the audit done by the town, which gives you the money. So there's no audit of Board of Ed line by line audit?
The audits are, the way it works statutorily is the audits, there's one audit done for the town and the board. It's all one audit.
So the one that's online does not give me a line by line audit of anything Board of Ed except for how much money we give the Board of Ed.
I haven't looked at your audit report, sir, so I don't know, but there's never more than one audit. There's always, and that's not an Enfield thing, that's just how it is all over the state.
So a question for anybody on this, has anybody seen a Board of Ed audit?
I have that.
Lorena said you have.
Yeah.
You have the
We
audit,
have the book, yes.
not the town one.
No, it's the same.
It's all
I know,
one.
but- So it shows a line by line audit of your books,
I have to give it to them, but line by line, every year.
but they give you a report on it, or just the
Yeah,
report
they
that we
give us
gave
the
you
report to the
$75
town
million,
and the
and that's it?
It goes to the town box.
It goes to the town at the town.
Once they're
I know,
finished.
I've read the one that's there,
It's the same
155
report.
pages, and it doesn't give anything line by line of your spending.
It's the same that they ask for the town, we give the same thing.
If you're looking at this, you're talking,
159 pages, have you,
this is
the
all we
Board of
have.
Ed just shows.
isn't the audit.
Okay,
No, no,
but I'm just saying.
It's a budget book.
This is, I understand that, Scott.
So
Budget
John,
book,
question
I
to
know.
John, question to John, have you seen the audits?
Well, yes, I mean, because basically the auditors come in, they review all of our accounts, they make selections of expenditures, and they, on a test basis, they'll go through and look, make sure everything's categorized correctly, and they will then create the financial statements or use our numbers, basically, prepare the financial statements and make sure that, yes, the Board of Ed was, there's budget versus actual reports that are in there. They do on a test basis look at individual expenditure items, okay? And they pick quite a few of them that they actually look at. But that's, was it approved? Was it, how was it spent? They
All right,
do go
let me say,
through.
it's a sampling, so we've all thrown around this term forensic audit. How is that different from the audit that we do every year with the town? What do you envision a forensic audit of the Board of Ed to be, John? That is line, it's not a sampling,
Well,
it's,
I mean,
or if they did it for the
forensic
town.
audit, and that's it's not really I would expect that if you're looking for something specific, you're auditing for a specific event or a specific activity to have happened.
So there's
So it would be like budgeted, you would prepare an RFP to request that specific action, You know, that,
So we'd give them the audit that was done, and then we would have to delineate to say, what happened to the 6 million? What happened to the special ed money? What happened to the grant money? You'd list the things that everybody has in contention, and they would look into it. That's what we wanted in the RFP, correct?
that's not what normally a financial audit is directed to do. They look overall at,
And that's what we pay for every year. It's a regular audit. Right, can you give me a dollar, how much that costs? Is that in the budget?
I think I haven't budgeted, I think it's gonna, we just went out to bid on it, I think it's $105,000.
For a regular
For a regular audit? And do we pay for the Board of Eds or the? Board of
Yes,
Eds
that's the total cost, yeah.
So that's an in-kind payment that we're. I'll yield for now.
Sure.
I might come back.
Okay, Amanda.
So I just want to acknowledge a couple of things. School funding is challenging, and I think I've said this before, and so I'm really trying hard not to make this a political argument. We can talk about, was this, you can blame it on 2 years of something being hidden or being built up. I'm just going to say we can't carry debt over. So like this can't be 2 years of something building because we would have had debt carried over. So that just factually isn't true. I think it's important, and I'm a little frustrated that we don't quite understand that things are fluid with school funding. I thought most of the town councilors were actually physically present when Tina and Charlotte went and gave a presentation on how we got here. What situation we're in. And I think we could easily explain the number that we're asking for and how we got here. And I think Andy has a very clear plan of being more transparent. I think we can all agree, fiscal practices and some transparency about what are our needs and how are we funding it. We all agree on that. So I just think it's saying things like blowing a budget where there were actual unforeseen things that happened, lies and misinformation that was shared with us about budgeting practices. Like people told us to budget certain ways from the state. So I don't think saying like the school blew a budget, it's just hurtful to say because I think there was honest, good planning that unfortunately many things happened that created this perfect storm that we're in. And all of us have some weight in it. And some of the fiscal practices is something that we can all discuss openly. I think if we want to talk about how did we get here, when you kick a can for a really long time and don't increase educational spending, we had to use COVID funds to hire staff that are legally mandated and required. We hired staff, TESOL teachers, special ed paras. We must provide those services. We didn't have an operating budget that covered them. We had emergency COVID funds that did. And so until we can have a real conversation about what the needs of our school district are and what it takes to support that, we're gonna, like it is a problem. And so I think in all of this has to be a joint effort and a commitment to public education. If any of you sat at a school yesterday, we are devastated. So the thought that you just want to say, sorry guys, no more money for you, and you've done something horrible, I highly encourage you to actually find out the factual information and see how our budgets are done. I don't think this is about politics. I think this is about honest, transparent, realistic budgeting. I think Andy has a good plan moving forward. And I really hope that we can have bigger conversations about school modernization, moving forward. How do we get to the realistic and prioritized needs of our public education? So I'm going to beg you all to support us because yesterday was devastating watching students come out of the building crying.
All set, Amanda? Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I wasn't going to say much because I happened to miss the last special meeting of the board where we discussed the MOU and unanimously made these amendments. Maybe that's the wrong term. Maybe it should have been, all present and voting. But that being said, so I know there's definitely some misinformation and some finger pointing around where the numbers came from. So I do sit on the finance committee for the board. We meet monthly and we get a budget summary. We meet at the beginning of each month. It's usually the first Monday. So I know as far as I came into this, the shortfall was on that budget summary, but it was masked, for lack of a better term, under the projected reimbursement line. So it wasn't until after May's finance meeting where we had the discussion and we looked at it and Again, that's where that 3.9 million came from. So whether we call it projected reimbursements, I think it was the Board of Ed meeting immediately following. So it would have been May 14th. So May 14th, I actually read in the line items from the finance report summary. So whether we call 3.9 not from the Board of Ed or not, our budget summary said approved budget 75. End of year projection at the time was 3.9 million more than that at 79 million. Understanding that it may have been a fluid number. So when people say that's not a Board of Ed number, that is a Board of Ed number. It just wasn't the final number. So, you know, we can play back that meeting if that point is in contention. I'm pretty sure it's May 14th, whatever the agenda item is, where I read the finance report. And I read the exact number. So, you know, 75 million approved. I even said projected reimbursements are there. End of year projection, which is what we're talking about, because the end of the year ended in 2 months, was at that time was about 79 million. Now we've learned it's went up to, it's actually about 86 if we talk about the last one, but there are projected reimbursements coming in, and it is truncating it down to that 5.6. So, you know, I guess, and as Councilor Ludwig said, I mean, there's definitely different numbers floating around. Now it seems that the consensus is the true number is 5.6 that we need. So I think that's where the conversation needs to go. But to say that the 3.9 was made up, I think is providing further misinformation. I mean, we do have, you know, we talk about stuff being in writing or our documents. You know, that was shared with the board. Again, it was read during a public meeting. Subsequent to that, I sent it to the town council leadership because they had asked me directly, what's your shortfall? And I was like, oh, it's 180,000. And then, oh no, there's some projected reimbursement. So, but regardless of that, the difference in the beginning of May between 75 million and 79 million was 3.9. Now we learned at the most recent finance meeting that there were additional bills. It's not 75 million. We're actually looking to spend about 86 for this current year. So we're talking 10 million over budget. But that's where that 3.9 comes in. 3.9 is now truncating that down to about 5.6. So I just kind of want to get that piece out there because, again, there's a lot of different numbers. There's a lot of stuff floating around. So, you know, the healthy conversation today is going to be at 5.6, but there is still value to that 3.9. And if we go back 6 weeks ago, the best information that was in front of the board finance committee at the time said the projected was 3.9. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Phil. Charlotte, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, so I just wanted to add, since Marie is upset and everybody apparently seems to want their pound of flesh or whatever here, I'm gonna go back to when I came to you guys on the 20th, right? And whether, you know, whether or not you say it's debunked and we didn't get it and these things didn't happen, at the end, it is the board at the time budgeted for the Alliance money to come. It didn't come, right? And then the town said, you don't have to give it back. Okay, but at the end, they still didn't get the 1.4 from the state that they were counting on and budgeted for. Am I correct? Right? So that happened the first year. Then it happened again the second year. I'm guessing the second year, maybe they should have cried a little louder to the state, right? And maybe when the state said, you know, we're not going to pay you for your reimbursement, at that point in time, I guess, should they have turned around and said, yo, can we have our money back? That probably would have been a good thing to say, but it didn't happen, right? So now we're here. And the additional special ed came in. And excess cost got shorted. I have a PowerPoint from the commissioner that said 91%. And it got shorted again. And I went back to the law last night. And in state law, it basically says that the state has to pay excess cost. And they're given a pool of money. And if that pool of money doesn't cover excess cost, they can't reduce the payments. So the state needs to fully fund it. It's right there in the law. I guess that's how you interpret it, but that's how I interpret it. So they're not doing their job either. So whoever did what, maybe it was some of the past, some of the future, whatever it is, the problem exists and we would like to fix it. And we would like to, let you know that although I couldn't promise that 78 new kids wouldn't show up in our district that are mostly outplacements, I would like to say that, we're going to try to change our practices in the finance department by having more detailed summaries monthly to actually show where are we at. We'd like to be able to have the finance from both sides of the town meet monthly to say, are your numbers matching up? It would be nice if the Board of Ed, if Lorena had access, at least a view only, to see the other accounts, to see the money coming in and out. It would be nice that we're going to try to give, quarterly reports to the board on the status of the budget. It would be imperative that we set standards, where you have points in time that would trigger alarms to say, hey, this isn't looking right, we need to check into it. So there's a whole slew of things that we want to implement to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And if 78 kids come in, we need to pull the trigger right away and figure out something. And we need to be able to, talk to the state and, to try to even cover what happened previously. I know Chris Cheney had emailed the state on June 3rd to tell them that we're in a pretty bad situation and we need help. I don't know if you ever got a response, but we're trying to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Now, I know you said you don't believe that it won't, and I'm hoping that it won't, and I'm hoping that the things that Phil is working on and we're all working on together to try to figure out, okay, how does this happen again? And, we need to budget realistically. Like Chris Drezick was a superintendent who was very good with finances. And he could move money around and make things work. And he did not budget realistically. He kind of budgeted optimistically. So we need to budget realistically because we can't have this happen again.
Peter. There's a quote, when you assume you make an ass out of you and me. I think we're all sitting here being asses sometimes. We're 5.6 million in the hole. Give it to us. Give us the 5.6. You can't spend more than you have, but it happened. This idea that Mike had about a monthly meeting and going over everything makes complete sense. If you do go over in some area, then immediately find someplace to cut to cover that. In other words, keep that budget in balance all the time. And I'm sure it will go up and down in certain places. I agree with much of what Marie had to say, that this didn't happen overnight, that someone on the past town council or the board or the central office was asleep at the wheel. I sit and look at what Charlotte's gone through, and she's gone through hell. She's caught a lot of crap. She wasn't on the last board. Phil comes in and looks at the numbers and asks questions, and he's catching a rash of shit. I make comments. I'm catching a rash of crap. The three of us weren't on the board last time. We're new to this, and we're caught in the middle of it too. So I'm saying or suggesting that you give us the 5.6. Let's start again, start on a clean slate, tell the public exactly what's happening, and next year there will be absolutely no excess spending whatsoever. I know that's a big ask, but I don't see where else we can go.
All set, Peter? Yeah, thank you. Tina.
Okay, so I just wanted to start with Councilor Ludwig. I appreciate your sentiments about how we got here. I also know that you know really well how the budgeting aspect goes for the Board of Ed. I said it the last time, I'll say it again, it's backwards. I think it's ridiculous that we have to pass a budget in February. Unfortunately, we received information from the state that simply was not correct. We have it in writing. They were giving us alliance money. in the history of alliance districts, they put you there to give you money to fix your school system. The craziest thing that happens is there's a lot of political players in the state of Connecticut. Are you all shocked? I'm not, but I learned how powerful they are. 3 schools were supposed to leave. One district was very proud. We're out. We're not going to be an alliance district anymore. I did it. I got us out of an alliance district. And they're like, okay, you're out. You're good. But you don't get $9 million of alliance funds anymore. They kicked and screamed. So they said, okay, instead of 33, we're not going to graduate these folks out. We're going to let the new 3, we're going to be 36, but you're not going to get as much money as everyone else. And so, okay, it was going to be 1.4, but to me, in this budget, anything helps, right? Because that's money that we don't have to burden the taxpayers, because that's what's broken too. We burden the taxpayers to pay for our educational budget. So we had information that we were getting the 1.4. The second year, we had information we were getting the 1.4. Our 1.4 was in House Bill 5003. And we were told it's in the budget, it's going to pass. It didn't. Overnight, it didn't pass. And we were shorted that money. The other issue is the excess cost. And this is where I get frustrated. And I understand your frustration, Councilor Pisner, I do. This is where I get frustrated, is we're caught in the crosshairs of the state telling us something in February, and then there's a legislative session. And we don't really know what happens and what people are saying behind closed doors. And then when the budget passed, we learned about the excess cost being reduced, even though it's the law that they're supposed to give us 100%. They said 91%. Somewhere along the way, it got reduced to 67%. That was a learning lesson. Don't budget what the state's telling you. You're going to reduce it. Like this year, we're going to budget what we got last year, because we're not going to ever believe what the state is telling us. So yes, we budgeted for alliance funds because we were told that in real time. It wasn't somebody who just said, I think I want to budget for this. The other issue came up is it's not really being talked about, but they extended the ETLA age. So now we're keeping the kids in the alternative learning program till 22 instead of 21. And that includes outplacements.
Age 22.
Age 22,
Well,
sorry.
it's not only just age 22, it's the entire year you turn 22.
And
So if somebody turns 22 on September 4th, he's in for the whole year.
So, and what had happened was that first year when we didn't get the alliance funds, our contingency is 1.4 million. And that contingency is to use budget shortfalls. So that was used to cover the 1.4 because there were conversations that the state was going to make good to the alliance districts because they weren't getting funding. So it brings us to the next year and the budget gets passed at the state and they reduce the cost share. We didn't get alliance funds, the ETLA, and I just want to explain this, and I'm not saying it's anybody's fault, but Lorena had been made aware that there was 2.5 million that we received from the state of Connecticut, from the finance department. And so they asked Lorena, do you want to draw down from that? Both Lorena and Superintendent Drezig said, I don't know if that's our money. We're not going to jail. Let us figure out what this money is. So they thought that they could possibly have that 2.5 to help the budget shortfall. What we learned after many conversations, and me and Charlotte talked to the finance director, that the money was deposited into the wrong account. So it was never our money on the town side. So we understand that. I'm hoping that there's conversations that can be had between the two finance departments to understand that and make sure that doesn't really happen again, because accidents happen. So that was another facet to it all. And we got 78 special ed kids. It was nothing nefarious. It was nothing poorly done. I personally, if one of you two make it to the state, you're going to be in constant communication for whoever's sitting here, because there is a lot of stuff we don't know and we need to understand. So that's how we got here. It was nothing nefarious. I understand you're mad, okay? One of the things I do want to say is you're the majority party. Everybody's going to blame you for everything, right? So just take a deep breath, because when we were the majority party, we got blamed a lot as well. I know Charlotte had asked for repeated meetings for, leadership to get together or joint meetings, and we did want to get together because we feel it's important. I don't feel good sitting in this room having this discussion knowing I was the board chair at the time, because I thought back and I thought, should we have done something different? No, this email says budget for 1.4. This says budget for 91%. So, that's a hard position for me, because I don't want anybody to think that I've done anything nefarious or purposely did something, because that's kind of defaming and that's not what happened. So what I've been trying to do, and working with Mr. Kober, we're trying to come up with solutions so that this doesn't happen again. I actually asked before we came here, how do we know that we can cover, like, what happens if 78 new special ed kids walk in? And so Andy explained the way he budgeted. He's taking care of that in this budget. Whatever we paid for this budget, that's what we're doing to make sure that we don't get 78 special ed kids. We can account for them, I should say. The importance of having that meeting is that you can ask us if we're meeting monthly or even quarterly, what are our special ed numbers looking like? Our special ed costs are expensive. We don't always have the services in-house, so we have to contract them, and that's where it gets really expensive. That's why it would be beneficial to really start looking at expanding that Eagle Academy, whether you want to just do that piece of it and forget about the modernization. I think the Eagle Academy is a really important piece to this puzzle, because we are full and our special ed numbers have gone up, and we can have space for those kids in our district, and we're not paying exorbitant amounts to other districts. So Phil and I talked about, potentially the two finance departments getting together quarterly. Phil showed a budget to the finance committee bipartisanly. We liked it, but I understand what you're saying. You want it to be more the format of what John has. I don't know if you've seen Phil's proposed budget, but it gives you everything you asked for by school. How many teachers, how many full-time teachers. It even goes into your percentage of special ed, your percentage of free and reduced lunch, all that other stuff. I think it's a really good component. You guys might like it. It's less confusing than like a busy budget. It just really lays out your full-time and all that kind of stuff.
It's in the exhibits.
Yeah. One of the things we have learned, and Mike, maybe you can speak to it or not speak to it. A lot of things you do by past practice. We learned from this, past practice doesn't work. We have changed as a district. We had new kids come in. We've been assigned an alliance district. We're not getting money. Past practice doesn't work. That's why we're trying to work bipartisanly as a board to figure out, how do we not do this again?
I'm going to be honest, I agree with what you're saying, except last year, you did know what you were getting for Alliance. Counselor Hall, or Representative Hall, said we got.
No.
And that's why I voted no on the budget last year, because it was wrong.
No, but I have to tell you, and we have it, we were not being told that by the legislator on the education committee.
Who was that?
Tom Arnone.
Okay, well.
Hold on. We have provided you with an email from John Kissel and Tom Arnone in 2022 explaining to you that the Board of Education is not getting any Alliance money because they fully funded ECS. Now, this is the miscommunication that the public and Councilman Ludwig's talking about, because the state of Connecticut fully funded ECS to the town of Enfield. So they don't owe you 1.4 million. Tom Arnone, through the request of the board, asked the state and sent an email in 2022 saying you are not entitled to 1 cent more from the town. I forwarded the email to you. Hold on. Now, Amanda, when she spoke, I give her credit, because she's the only one who sat here and said, we hired employees. We did what we had to do with that COVID money.
Ken, you didn't let me finish. Didn't I have the floor?
But you didn't once say.
But you didn't let me finish.
Okay.
So I'm going to turn to the people on the board with me and Interim Superintendent Longy. We were told House Bill 5003 contained Alliance money. I'm not talking about the ECS cost share. I'm not. We were told from the Alliance Network at the state of Connecticut, we were getting 1.4. What happened in legislative session, we were not privy to. I understand what you're saying about how you said we weren't getting 1.4. I did not hear in any conversation somebody say, you're not getting Alliance money and we're going to send it through ECS until after the state budgeted was voted on. After. And I would not make that up.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm gonna disagree, Tina, because I honestly believe that you were in the room with Senator Kissel and Representative Hall.
After the budget was voted on.
It was the town hall meeting that we had over in the Enfield room.
Yes.
And they handed out paper. And I'm gonna be honest with you, the first year I was on the council, I didn't catch it. It was 1.2, and I didn't catch it. But I caught it the next year. Because they handed it out and they said, Alliance District's money is frozen. You are gonna get exactly, just like you were told this year what you're gonna get, and next year you already know what you're gonna get. It's already planted in there. And
After the budget passed.
No, it wasn't, Carol. That's what
The
Carol
town hall
handed
was
out.
the day or 2 days after the budget had passed.
It was in April.
The town hall I went to was after the budget had passed because I had wanted to ask about the
It's why
ECS.
I brought up the whole 1.4, because the town got that money.
Can I finish speaking?
Yes.
I went to the town hall, that was a June meeting because it was after the budget passed because I was trying to understand how it happened. I am telling you, it was after the budget passed is when we learned of stuff. And I'm sticking to it because that's the truth. That's fine. The ECS cost share. I'm not saying we're entitled to that money. The town, that was a town issue. The town budgeted the way they budgeted. I had nothing to do with that. The town budgeted 28, they got 29. That was Ms. Pisner's point, Councilwoman Pisner's point. I get it. That's not my issue. That's not my wheelhouse. As far as the support staff that was hired, I agree. That support staff was hired. That was supposed to be covered by Alliance funds because it was support staff. We didn't hire staff so that we could have class sizes of 12 or 14. We hired behavior techs and social workers. Had we gotten the Alliance funds, we have to submit a plan to say this is who we hired and this is why. Because the Alliance funds will only support certain types of hires. That's how we got here. And I'm just saying, like, at the time, this is what we were told. It was nothing nefarious. It was past practice the way that we budgeted, and we can't do past practice anymore. And we're working on it bipartisanly to fix it.
Can I ask what?
No, she's got the floor.
So, go ahead.
Are you done?
Yes, but I don't want you, I want to have a conversation with you. I don't want you to be talking at me because the ECS stuff is something that has nothing to do with me on the town budget book.
The 91% you said that you budgeted for, you've never gotten more than 71. I have all the numbers from the state. I have for 2 months, Tina, been chasing every one of the reasons you say why you are where you are to back you up. And they all fall short, every one of them. Amanda admitted, I'm looking at your numbers. In 2021, you had 774 staff. 22, 840, 23, 891, 24, 926. And you know what? Your proposed budget, you're still higher than you were before COVID.
Can I just clarify, not all of those were COVID hire funds, like we get other grants and dollar
I understand,
money.
Amanda, I
And so
understand.
I don't want to quote a number, but I do think we do need to be honest. And I also just want to say publicly, Enfield wasn't alone with hiring personnel with
Absolutely.
COVID funds. And
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that that's right or wrong.
No, I agree.
I think it's important that it's not like shame on whoever.
Plus the cost share, budgeting for the cost share.
And I'll just go back to my previous comments where I asked Chris, and I'll own it because I'm gonna say it here, where it's none of us sitting at this table, and I don't want to ever make somebody look bad, but I looked back at our 2 previous years of budget deliberations. Because I was like, what happened?
Yes.
I begged for a greedy budget because I knew we were using COVID funds for things. And I said, what do we really need? Because we should have known, we need to know that number. And I'm mad that I didn't push for that more, and I'm mad that for over the last 2 years when we had majority, we didn't push for bigger increases, because it's obvious that we need more. And so I think that's just a tough conversation.
And even though Chris Dresnick isn't here, Tina and Charlotte, you sat in a room with me when Chris Dresnick pointed and said, last year, he pleaded with you guys to make cuts because he knew this was coming. Okay? Neither one of you said anything. Charlotte obviously wasn't the chairman last year. So Chris Dresnick saw the problem last year. He said it in the meeting here, and you said nothing, Tina. You didn't argue with him. You didn't challenge anything. So pushing all this blame onto Chris isn't exactly the answer either. And I'm just, he's not here
I'm not
to
just pushing blame on anybody. What I'm saying, are you talking about when we sat together for the budget meeting?
This was, I don't know, 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
When we all sat at this table for the budget meeting?
I don't remember.
So I'm trying to put context when you
I
said
don't remember who was in
why
the
I didn't say anything. I'm trying to remember the meeting because we've sat in here quite a few times, so I'm trying to.
Right, well, my point is, if we direct the town manager to do something and it don't work, it's on us. It's not on him. We told him what to do. Okay, so it's everybody on the Board of Education. You know, you can't budget on a lottery ticket you didn't scratch. And that's what you do with grants. And, you know, having emails from your state rep on your side from 2022 because he heard he was getting thrown under the bus on the floor. And I had the email before the meeting was over from John Kissel. Tom sent, verifying that no funds were due to you. So where the board thought they were getting this money, budgeting 91% when you've never gotten higher than 71 ever. All those numbers are documented from the state of Connecticut.
So can I just say, the presentation in the State Department of Ed said towns were receiving 91%. You guys like to say that we don't budget on grants, but you guys budget on grants. You budget on the ECS cost sharing grant. You budget 29 million. So municipalities have to budget on grant money. So to say that, now looking back at the state, we can't budget what they're telling us to budget. We get that. And yes, I was the chair, but I would also like to say that there wasn't equal representation at the finance meetings. We had 2 Democrats that showed up to every finance meeting and not 1 Republican. So we are a board of 9, not just the chair. And I want you to remember that.
Absolutely.
Because don't want us to get into this position, but I'm also trying to explain how we got into this position. And I know what I have for texts and emails, they're printed here, and me and you, I'd love to sit with you and we can go through it. The biggest question is going to be for all of us in January moving forward, because this is another thing we all have to think about because we're all still going to be sitting here, is if we remain in the Alliance District, because this is things that I'm wondering about, what happens now? Like there's no guarantee, or where is this going to work? I don't know.
No guarantee on what?
Alliance funds. So if we,
Alliance
for
funds.
this upcoming budget.
Hold on, I'll explain Alliance funds because it had to get driven and beat into my head. Alliance funds are nothing but a guarantee.
Right.
You will get 100% of the ECS from the state, which we get 29 million. And that's why.
That's not true.
That's not correct.
You don't get the full amount. A percentage, well, it depends, it's a calculation percentage, and a direct percentage comes to the board. And the town gets shorted.
If the town is shorted, yes, absolutely. It's absolutely true. If the town only got 28 million this year, you guys would have got a check directly for the $1 million.
Right,
But the town didn't get shorted, we got fully funded. So you guys are saying because Bob and company, let me finish, budgeted 28 million in ECS money, okay? he still wrote a check to the Board of Education funding you fully.
The 28.
No, for your $75 million. Whether he got 28 from the state or he got 29, you still got fully funded.
Right.
So when the money came in, I remember the day, Bob was happy. Oh, this worked out. We got an extra 1.4, but they raised taxes to give you that money. And that's where we disagreed. But they didn't short you 1 cent. And the state of Connecticut didn't short this town 1 cent. So now if the state changes the formula and lowers the ECS to the town of Enfield, okay? So now if they only give Bob 26 million.
ECS formula is different than Alliance formula. Those are two things you're intermingling though, Ken.
Okay.
Which is dangerous.
Okay, then maybe we'll
It's
sit down with
tricky.
the state reps and senator and they can explain it to you also, because this is fact. And Bob, I think will back it up.
School finance project would be very helpful, and I think it's the other
School
piece.
finance project, I didn't overspend $6 million.
No, it's an organization that helps like explain school funding, and the other piece too, when you talk about grants, there's a difference. There's entitlement grants and there's like, we apply and we hope to get money. We were like, we get a ton of entitlement grants, which we do budget on because that's guaranteed money from the state for services.
I think we should focus back on the money,
5.6.
on what the town is going to do or not going to do. Bob, you're next.
Okay. I'm not gonna reiterate what everybody has spoken tonight. I still think that we have to kind of like regroup and refocus on the reason why we're here. And the reason why we're here is to help the Board of Ed out with $5.6 million. I myself personally, I am in favor of making the Board of Ed whole. Andy, tonight, what you did during the particular meeting and going through your contingency plan and what you're doing for the budget, to me is fantastic and perfect. The information that we received here today, that explained the increased cost of insurance cost, all of the exhibits that you really, your department and how you went through each particular school and everything. Moving forward, I do think it would be a great idea that we do communicate. So all those ideas that were brought upon everybody tonight, I'm all for. Once again, if they have to be, I know it's stated in here as biannual, but if they have to even go quarterly reports, monthly reports, whatever it takes to move forward. Obviously, the best practices of doing a Board of Ed budget, especially during the pandemic years and the money running out, that kind of imploded. All right, so going back and regrouping and to how you have to do it, I don't care, each particular school, budget, line item budgets, whatever needs to get done, I think we're all willing to be able to work together to move forward. I really a little disappointed to see the finger pointing. There's no finger pointing. Any audit that's going to come up, they're going to say these shortfalls. All of the reasonings that we've heard tonight, they're legitimate reasons. And so from my point of view, moving forward, I am going to be in favor of making the Board of Ed whole and communicating amongst us, moving forward to make, or to not make the same mistakes that maybe have occurred. So that's kind of like where I'm at right now. So thank you.
With payments or without payments for the 1.7?
With.
For the 1.7 only. Councilman Ludwig.
For that, for the additional 1.7.
Correct.
With them to make the payments that he explained how he would do it. And I have the confidence that they will do what they say as in the MOU, it's a gentleman's agreement.
Councilman Ludwig.
Thank you. Andy, I just want it for the record, so you cut $9 million for next year's budget, but that includes, you have a contingency as part of that overall budget. No, so to be clear, next year.
$9.5 million, and there's not a contingency.
So right now, there's no contingency, right?
That's we're gonna work.
But you're whole.
Work our butts off to get there.
All right, so I just want to make sure you're whole. All right, so no contingency. And you're what, 77 million, so it's about 1.6 million is 2%, right, roughly? You can do 2%?
It was like 1.98.
All right,
Yeah.
All right. And it is a suggestion, it's interesting, there's so many moving parts. And what revenues you're getting, what revenue we all get. What would be interesting, and I know we've talked about this, and I've asked, it would be good to put a number to what we're not getting in ECS cost grant, the excess grant. I've thrown some rough math around, but I think the public needs to understand, and everyone needs to understand. So we're saying we're getting funded at 91 versus 61, 65, whatever the number is. This isn't a couple $100,000 a year. This is significant dollars, but we don't put it in print. And so I think some of the frustration, I don't want to speak for anyone other than myself, is okay, well, you're not getting this money, so then the local taxpayer has to pick it up, right? And so as we talk about state and everything else, again, everything flows downstream. We're the final ending of the stream. And yet we're complaining about this. We're not saying, here's the money we're not getting. And I'm not suggesting we're going after state reps, but it's a key material piece and why we struggle. We're going to struggle every year to meet a budget. And it's the same thing with the state mandates. Do we have an estimate on everything that you have to do that you don't get funded? And I know it's an estimate, but these are real numbers that the local taxpayer has to pick up. And if they understood it, and we all understood it a little better, maybe the discussions are a little more fluid as opposed to, because every year we're gonna struggle because we're the end, we're down the stream. And we talk about a lot of things that people hear, but we don't put a real dollar amount on it.
Well, that mandated reading program was $500,000.
But I'm saying this should be something you list. So that's what I'm saying. We're talking about number. Everyone's got a different number, and yet no one understands. We keep saying, how do we get here? Well, if we keep listing where we're not getting funding, you're doing it on a monthly basis, talking to the council. Well, we know how we got here. So there's not a finger pointing going on. And everyone understands, okay, at some point, maybe the town and board can work together because the law is pretty clear, and I'm not a lawyer, that they should be funding us 100% of the ECS excess cost grant. And they haven't done it forever.
Well, it's excess costs and ECS are separate.
I'm sorry, excess costs, apologize. And that's 40% of a 100% number, so.
We can discuss that at our joint meeting, let's get back to the money.
I agree, but so it's easier for me to approve money when I know, okay, what I'm not getting and why I'm getting asked for this money. For me, I like just know what the dollar amount is. I gotta be upfront. The 5.6 is tough because I know it puts us in a very perilous, I think we just need to be honest with everyone here. Our fund balance is not where it needs to be. And I think we go in eyes wide open, again, because we're trying to be transparent here, that if we agree to cover it, whether you pay us back, it's gonna be about 6 months where we're gonna be in a little bit of, there's some peril here. People just need to be honest. So if we're being honest here and something happens in the town, we have to spend contingency. We're under the 9% that I called statutory requirement. We are now our bond rating's at risk. So everyone just needs to be eyes wide open. We take a risk. That's fair if that's what the council wants to do, but there's risk. There is risk here. I just think people need to understand that. It's not just, hey, look, we're gonna make you whole. Well, hopefully if that happens, there's risk, real risk. And when people continue just to say, look, you gave me 2% and you're horrible people, we're putting every single taxpayer at risk if we fund the 5.6 because the fund balance is perilously close to being under that 9%, where Moody's and Poor's can say, you're no longer a AA, and I'm telling you, that's about $1 million worth of debt. And we're talking about modernization, all the other things that you want to do. So there are domino effects here. That's all I just want people to understand. That's what I was getting to, and I apologize for the roundabout way. Go ahead, sorry, Andy, go ahead. That's okay.
Hold on. On that, all those numbers are on paper. Representative Hall has been working with the Board of Education and myself, providing everything to us to the point she found that they still are eligible for over $1 million in 2 grants, and the deadline's tomorrow. You're shaking your head no, Andy. What happened?
I talked to Representative Hall, so there was some miscommunication. So those are grants that we've already received. They were talking to her about for next year, the grants, and all that is given to us by the state. That's all been accounted for. Okay. That's in the budget.
All right, and that's my point. Monthly meetings, we can talk about this.
Yes.
There's just too many hands in the pot and no one knows exactly what's going on.
Here.
Sorry, go ahead, Andy.
This is a naive question. It's probably for John Wilcox, just because I don't understand. I'm just learning finances. This is my first budget I've ever done, hopefully my last. So we have 3 months of insurance that we haven't paid yet. So that's a big part of it, right? We're holding on to 3 months of insurance to send over. I may be totally confused, but I know we keep talking about your contingency or rainy day fund. I thought like Mike and I think Tina and Charlotte at one point really worked hard about building a surplus up in our insurance. I may be way off, but I'm just throwing it out. Is there any way we could maybe not take all of your contingency money and maybe our insurance that we have to owe you for 3 months, could that be covered for the excess of insurance? I don't know. This is just a question and I might be a total idiot. Actually, I am an idiot, but I just want to at least throw that out.
I don't know exactly what the fund balance was at the end of '23 in the insurance reserve, the health insurance reserve fund. I don't know that it would cover the entire 3 point, or the 3 point, what is it, the?
3.9, yeah, we basically own insurance, 3.9. That's basically what we are.
Wanted to cover. It would cover some of them, at least. So yes, we could take it out of that insurance. Now that would leave the insurance reserve fund short. Short, we would have a fund balance, I would think, somewhat anyway, less than we would want, which we could then build up over the next couple of years.
Let's figure out what we're gonna give. Right. And then we can figure out where we're gonna give it from. But a good question, Andy. Thank you. John, you were next.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that we really just don't have any choice here. We have choices, but the right thing to do is to give them the money that they're asking for. I agree with Councilor Ludwig. I mean, as I do oftentimes with him when it comes to managing money and making sure that we are protected. I also understand how perilously close we are on our fund balance and the implications of that. How many budgets have you done?
13.
How many budgets have you done? Scott?
On the Board of Ed?
Yeah.
7.
How many budgets have you done?
5.
There's 30 years of budgeting experience here. Has this ever happened before?
No.
And I spoke with the town manager about history and people who have been associated with the Board of Ed and budgets that have happened in the past. This has never happened before. And we have a great finance department. I know there's a risk, but I think we have the experience at the table to make sure it doesn't happen again. It's your explanation of the perfect storm is the most logical explanation, right, wrong, or indifferent. And we could talk about $1 million or two. We're way over $1 million. $1 million is not making a difference here, other than to point fingers at people unnecessarily. It doesn't change the situation. So, you know, I just think there is enough experience on the town staff, on the Board of Ed staff, on the Board of Ed itself, that we should just do what Peter says and give them the money and move on.
I'm starting to feel like a Democrat.
You're not. You're not.
Don't worry, Peter.
He actually asked me to go for a ride for coffee before the meeting.
Oh, don't tell people that. Bob and I have known Drezek longer probably than anybody else sitting here at the table. Back when he was just a finance guy at central office, then he eventually ended up as superintendent. And in the conversation just before Chris left, he and I are sitting alone in his office, and he's telling me, Peter, you know I'm good at finance. I know how to move money around. I did it for the last 2 years, he said. That's before this year. He said there was no place left to move it. No place. And my thing is, leadership had to know something. I don't know. I just have empathy for Charlotte and what she's going through right now. But this whole thing, having a monthly meeting with leadership between the board and the town council makes a lot of sense. I think Mike was spot on suggesting that. And then having not a semi-annual review, but I would have a review every quarter for the budget, what's going on. We've really got to stay on top of this like we've never, ever been on top of it before. Because we're up Schitt's Creek with no paddle right now.
Thank you, Peter. Chris?
What I want to say is I understand all sides of this. I've met with council, met with the board people, and I understand there may not be specific answers to everything or the timing. It's very convoluted and we have to look at it later. It was a perfect storm. But to Michael's point, what I must be very clear about John's, we do have the insurance account. We had a catastrophe years ago because we didn't have enough money in it. We can't afford to do it. If we're going to do this, take it from the contingency fund so everybody knows where it came from. But my concern is just what you had said a little earlier, Mike, and all the others. I think we need to recognize it. You will get no quarter from the public if in 6 months we have catastrophic mains fail or a pump station. We already know that will cost us 5 to 7 or 8 million. We will instantly be under the fund balance, which will affect our rating. So when all of us say, well, we did meetings monthly, we really didn't find out, but we had a good meeting, we all wanted to do nice things. But if in 6 months, our rating gets tanked and we either can't borrow or it's an exorbitant rate for all of our projects and it's millions to the town and the fund balance, the public's not going to give you a pass that we were all in this room and we all were happy and we said, we know what happened, it's a perfect storm, it won't happen again. They're going to blame everybody on this council, won't be the board. The board did your job, you got the money. But I'm just telling you, you are dangerously close to that fund balance. And I'm not saying don't do it, I'm just saying let's just not fuss it over and say, well, we'll do an audit later to see what happened. We'll have monthly meetings to see where we are. If you reduce the fund balance to around the 15 and we have one catastrophe, we are under the limit instantly and it will be a spiral downward because of the bond ratings. If anything else occurs, we have no money, no contingency. It will be a dire emergency for the entire town. And no one's going to give any of you credit sitting here today to say, well, we held hands, we were happy, we bailed them out, we're all good and we'll see. It won't be the board, it will be these counselors that made this decision. And nobody's going to want to hear that we were going to do monthly meetings. We were going to find out. We kind of knew what happened, but we really didn't. The meeting is Monday. We have till July 1st to come up with a plan. I would suggest we haven't really solved anything here tonight at all. And I'm not being a naysayer. It's good we're here. We should have perhaps been doing this weeks ago when we knew we had the problem. Your job tonight is how much are we going to pay? Where are you going to take it from? And what are the specific requirements in the MOU? Because as we're sitting here right now after 2 hours, we have no plan. Monday, there's a line held in our council agenda to have the mayor authorized to sign the new MOU. We have no idea what it is right now. We don't know the amount. And then the transfers John would make accordingly. We have some better semblance. So I suggest, I don't know how much further you're going to go, but we haven't solved anything. Maybe you need another meeting, but Monday night we've got to vote on how much and what's the MOU or have another special meeting. But I think this was good, but I think it's a little late. But I just don't want to just, as manager representing all of you, have any illusions that if we have, and we really could, we had mains, we have a lot of, we've talked about $100 million we need in capital improvement on the town side, over 100 and something million in the schools. We have boilers failing, doors failing, leaks, roofs. Let me tell you, a couple of those things go bad this summer. Our fund balances could be gone, let alone we're on the balance that we have the 9%. And I just want you to all go with open eyes that the public doesn't know anything that's going on here. Nobody's watched any of these meetings, a small percentage. So when you go back later and say, well, you know, we thought we had good intentions, but you know what, your taxes, we're doing an interim assessment. We're raising your taxes to cover this. Our fund balance is $2 million. And now the cost of getting money, instead of the 2%, you're now at 6%. So I'm just saying, I'm not advocating either way, but I've got to be the voice of reason. This can't be kumbaya, hold hands. Nope. You've got to make tough decisions, and we really got to decide. We can stay here as long as you'd like till midnight, but how much are we going to give? And the council can wait till Monday to finalize it. But I think your order of business is, how much are we giving? What is the MOU specifically going to state? We hope they'll repay it, and I believe they will try to do that, and we move on. But do it with your eyes wide open, because it isn't 30 million in the fund balance now. It isn't 25. It isn't going to be 20. It's going to be around 15. And one emergency, we're below the limit. So let's just understand that and be candid about it. I rely on John. I think, and it's going to be a decision of the council. I think we can do it. We certainly can do it now. But I'm telling you, if we have any unforeseen contingencies, we're really on the edge now.
Chris, the question that you have to answer, what's going to happen to the school board and the schools? What's going to happen to the town? That's the only, you got to answer one of those two questions. And I don't empathize what you people sitting on the council, what you have the decision that you have to make. But it's got to be one or the other, and no matter which one we do, half this town ain't going to be happy.
You're right, Peter, and all I want us to know is not only will they not be happy, but we could be in a real emergency if things go. I'm just telling you, we know we're going to have failures in the mains and pump stations. We know that, we've had them. So I'm not advocating, or Amanda's looking, I'm just saying.
The 5.6 is going to be in debt regardless. Like, even if you sign this MOU or don't, we're just kind of not going to pay you the 5.6 million. So like, and then you're going to sue us, and then we have legal fees on both sides. So like,
yeah, I don't think the town.
I just don't know what the solution. Like, you're out the money anyway. So sign it or don't sign it.
I think we go into this with eyes wide open, knowing it is an agreement with best efforts to pay it back. I cannot foresee. I would never recommend, I don't think the town attorney would for the board to be sued by the town council if you couldn't make it work. I think that would, like you say, just be sending good money after bad. It would rip the town apart. It would be foolish. So I think we go in, best intentions, we sign the agreement in good faith for whatever it is, and we make best efforts to move forward. I will just tell you, I think there's a lot of good news in Enfield, but Michael had said it. Now I'll tell you two things that are bad. One, about his remarks in the recession, I don't know. You know, before presidential election, he tells a lot of things. One concerning thing to me tonight in the JI was, it said Governor Lamont may consider cutting town aid next year. That was in the paper tonight. So if we think we're in trouble now, what if that happens? So I just want us to be clear. And you know, you can make any kind of analogy you want. You know what? I saw in the paper tonight again, I think it was a 27-year-old young man tried to save a girl. I think it was a teenage girl drowning. He drowned in the process. So let's not bring everybody. Let's think about this. We want to help. You're our partners, but let's make sure, as somebody else said before, both ships don't go down. So I really think you got to focus this. I'm not being fresh. I know we've talked about it. I don't think we can solve what happened in this meeting. So I think it's really incumbent on the council. How much are you willing to spend? We take it out of the contingency. John will direct it for Monday night. We make a very short MOU. Here's the money. This is the payback provision. This is forgiven. Do a forensic audit according. The town will pay for it. Come up with your plan to balance it next year and move on. Shorter is sweeter, but we need to get to the details, and we haven't. We only really have. John has to get this all ready. We have to be prepared for the council vote Monday. So I'm just saying, let's go as long as we can, and if we have to go again after Monday, we still could. We have to, the last day of June.
Mayor Nelson, can I add one thing?
John, or Gina, I'm sorry, you're next.
So I just had really, hopefully, what is a simple message. So, through the mayor to the finance director. So the contingency, the fund balance, this 3.9, not the Board of Ed 3.9, but the 3.9 that you were talking about, that we were using in this year's budget, right?
Yes.
So that has not come out of the
FY
fund.
'25 budget.
Yes, that has not come out of fund balance yet, right?
That is not.
Okay, that is not encumbered as of right now, meaning we're not writing a check for that in the next 3 weeks.
That is correct.
Okay, so if that money is in there and we take this 5.6 out, conceivably, even though it's still a scary number, it's still not the 16 because that 3.9-ish is still in there. So my next question is there money during the year, fiscal year, that sort of flows into that contingency, i.e. general fund, for excess, I guess, income, right? So that amount goes up at some point if there's money that flows into that account, right?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. So I completely get what you're saying because your job is to protect us. I understand what you're saying because that 15 or 15.5 million is the number we need to deal with. But what it sounds like is if we give them the 5.6, we're still going to have a bigger cushion than we think we do because that money isn't all coming out at the same time. It's going to come out in different time frames, right? The 3.9 that we have to use for the town side and the 5.6 that we would be giving the Board of Ed, they would conceivably be repaying us during next year at some point, some of it.
1.7, but not next fiscal year, starting.
The year after, or maybe earlier, you know, if all the stars aligned. And there would be income coming into that fund balance. So scary, but maybe not as scary as it could be.
So if everything happened according to the budget in FY '25,
I
we
just
would
like
go
what
down.
you just said, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But, I mean, we have money coming in.
Yes,
Yes, we do have money coming in. We have expenditures going out.
yes,
And if everything fell according to plan, it would be 3.9 million.
yes.
Now, you know, the truth is, and I've told you before, I budget conservatively.
You do, absolutely.
So I hope to protect,
So
that's the way to
my-
protect the town.
And yes, okay. Thank you. I mean, that makes me feel a little better. I'm on board with it anyway.
But I think part of your insurance, the payments, they're asking us to withhold the payments, so that money wouldn't go to general fund, it'd go back into the insurance fund to make it whole, right? Because that's what they're asking us to hold, is their payments for insurance, which is gonna lower that insurance.
So the
account.
original request, I believe, was for us to make the 3 months of payments from our general fund balances into the insurance fund.
Okay, so we're covered.
Okay.
Right.
And so, and my last point before, I know Scott and I, when we wake up tomorrow, are starting our 36 or 48 hours of safe grad being awake. So I would love to go home and go to bed, and I'm sure you would too. So my last question is, your sweep at the end of the fiscal year of the accounts, how much do we think that that's gonna net?
Of the capital accounts or?
Just, you know how you sweep it at the end of the year and we have money left over in some accounts?
I haven't gone through
Estimate.
and I don't believe we will be using the entire $5 million that we budgeted for this fiscal year. Okay, what that number is, I don't know for sure. I do know that by investment income, because the interest rates have risen, one benefit, I mentioned this before, we are way over budget in that line item. So there's, you know.
So it may be a
over
little
$1 million.
more cushy than.
What was it last year?
What was what?
That we swept in?
I think we were just about even last year.
Yeah, I think it was a little meeting cleanup. I think that's.
Gina, are you all set?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Lori, you're next. And then Tina. So Lori, you're next.
Okay, everything being said, I want to say we're the ones that's really sticking our necks out. We're sticking our necks out. If something happens, we're in big trouble. But there's a sting to this. If we give them 5.6, there's always a sting to it. The last Board of Ed meeting I watched, it was said that the council is reckless and selfish. And yet here we are trying to talk about helping the Board of Ed out. And then we get emails saying that elect counselors that care about education. There's always a sting.
it'd be nice just to give and feel good about it and do something well for the town, because nobody wants to look bad. We want the town to look good. We want the kids to be successful, but we don't care about education, and we're reckless and we're selfish. I'm just saying, all that has to stop. It's not appreciated and it doesn't help.
Team. I just wanted to add that when Superintendent, sorry, Mr. Longy, when Mr. Longy started his presentation, his first words out of his mouth were, we budgeted for Alliance funds because we thought we were getting them. And I want people to remember that. And then when we found out we weren't getting them, it was in 2022, it was at some point at the end of May.
We're backing up, Tina.
I get it, but I
Gotta move
just,
forward.
the point I'm trying to make is that I felt like there was a dialogue where there was like, you were trying to get me to say something, or you had talked to Tom and Carol. We had the information at the time that we did it, and I just want to clarify that. And going forward, we need to be more careful with what the state tells us as an Alliance designation. We've learned our lesson. That's all I want to clarify, so thank you.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
So, Andy, I just have one question. You just said that you have zero contingency going into this coming school year.
Well, zero is probably, it's not a $0 amount. We still have to fully get our final budget book because we're still going through every single teacher's salary and insurance. It's gonna take a couple of weeks to do. We're hopeful to have 50,000 left over, maybe 100 if we're lucky, to carry over for next year, but that could change in the next 2 weeks. We've heard there's a lot of teachers that are looking for jobs. It's gonna be really fluid for the next 2 weeks.
That in itself is really frightening.
Well, I think
And
we budgeted pretty conservatively.
But it's frightening because we're looking at taking everything we have, giving it to you, and if one thing goes wrong with the school board,
or the town,
we're both sunk. We're both sunk.
We have bare bone budgets.
So
what happens when you approve a bare bone budget?
And what was the option? What was the option?
You could have raised taxes.
We raised them the last 2 years.
Well, but that's the
We
option.
raised them the last
That's
2
the
years,
option.
John.
Well,
And they
Marie,
were
that's
fully
the option.
funded the
And
last
I'm
2
out of
years and
order.
this still hasn't. So I'm gonna rest my case.
That's why it was 9.
Magical line.
So
Scott, you've been quiet, go ahead.
the slightest bit of contingency that we may have is, as Mr. Longy has explained, he's budgeting as if we're going to get 78 new special ed kids again next year. That was an anomaly. So theoretically, if we were to get a third of that number, then there's a pinch of contingency as well. He's budgeting for the worst case scenario, which is what happened this current school year. So there may be contingency, but we can't count on that yet.
John.
By the way, just I want to say this, if we didn't raise taxes last year, you think we have a problem now? You think there's a problem now? It'd be 10 times worse. So you can thank us for that.
Or we could have solved the problem last year.
Enough, we're not moving forward. Let's move forward. So I need something from the council. What do you guys want to do, or do you want to call it a night and we hash it out Monday night?
Have they gotten our full revised MOU with the appendices and the 1.7? Like, have we been able to give them our full?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which MOU are we voting on?
Because that has the
There
clear.
needs to be a whole new MOU.
Not necessarily though, right? Because don't we have an MOU prepared for the 3.
I want it clean.
I know, but hang on, I just want to clarify because what it is for the 3.9 and then the 1.7 with us repaying
Right,
it back.
and you put stipulations on us to lend you the money, so your MOU, I'm not interested in.
I think it was
The
about
original-
explicitity. I don't think it was like about stipulation.
So what do you guys wanna do? Do you wanna, because we don't have an MOU, so we need a consensus. Do we rewrite the MOU for 5.6 million with a reimbursement of 1.7 under the terms that they had said, full forensic audit, line by line budget, and quarterly financial updates, and again, it's the MOU. I mean, we could say whatever we want. We can't force them to anything. So the MOU is really not worth the paper it's written on because Amanda's comments straight out. Don't give it to us. We just don't pay you anyways. That's how nonchalant spending $6 million.
I think that was the honest conversation. I wasn't meaning to be nonchalant, Ken. I was just being honest about the situation that we're in.
I'm suggesting they write the MOU and they get it to the council for Monday night. That gives everybody time to think about this and discuss it. And then Monday night, we have a discussion whether or not we're gonna move forward with the MOU or not.
Mr. Mayor, could I just get a little guidance, because this is new, that we'll write another MOU. So one MOU with a full amount, but you would like to see 1.7 with a payment plan. I
The
just want to
payment
make
plan
sure.
that you presented, Andy.
Great, okay.
Yes.
But you wanted us to incorporate everything into one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just ask, so we don't get waylaid and get confused. Attorney Cheney, why don't you talk with Mark Serrato, the two of you talk to implement this, so we don't have any confusion.
Chris, that's perfect.
I think that way you talk tomorrow, you hash it out. I think the mayor's saying 5.6, the 4 conditions, keep it simple, and they can consider it Monday up or down.
Okay, that's a good suggestion.
Do we just take something off
We
the
may need to
agenda?
take
We
it.
have
I
two
haven't
things
seen it
on
yet.
the agenda. For what? We have 2 items on the agenda. I think it's now 1 item.
Upstairs?
No, for Monday.
Just one. No, we have one thing on it. We have two. We have the MOU and how John's gonna pay
Right,
it.
and how John will pay them.
Yes.
Right, so if we approve the MOU, we still need how John's gonna pay it.
Gotcha.
And he's working on that. He knows what the
And
requests
as an
are.
aside, I haven't seen the agenda, but if it's really long, we may wanna talk about if we could bump something off the agenda.
It's
If we're
not
gonna
that
deal
long.
with this.
It's
I
not
don't
that
know.
Yeah,
If it's.
we can look at it again, and there's some late minute way we can put this first when everybody's present,
Yeah,
instead of at the end.
This isn't a joint, it's not a joint discussion. This is the council.
Well, I know,
Right.
but it may be a long discussion, is what I'm saying,
I have
right?
a question.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Thank you. Are we referring to the recent markup that Mark Serrato?
No, throw them all away. They're shredded. They're starting with a new one. The 2 attorneys are gonna work
So
together.
none of the language.
Throw it away. We're still doing, again, we're still doing a line-by-line budget request, a full forensic audit of the Board of Education, okay? And a quarterly financial update from the board. And I think they've established that they've cut to be solvent, but I said this before with the 3.9, so I have Andy, and we've had very long conversations. I believe in the man and his passion. He's gonna pay the money he can pay. He's not making an empty promise on the 1.7, but that doesn't help us on the town side. So
And our attorney.
I think they're gonna use it as a template and they're gonna
Yes.
do it.
all 3 they're gonna use as a template.
2 that's gonna be converted to 1.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, Chris?
Yeah,
One.
oh,
One,
no,
right.
no, 1 is fine, that's.
Motion to
done.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?